Don't, because you had Sam Darnold, you bring in Zach Wilson. If you want to go that route, it's a win-win. If Darnold's great, you move Zach Wilson. If Darnold's not, you move away from Darnold, you go with Wilson. If you're 0 for 2, you're fired. You should be fired if you're 0 for 2 on 2 decisions at quarterback. Mike Tannenbaum, I'm going to drag you into this argument because you made me mad today as well. You're talking about Sam Darnold and Josh Allen. Josh Allen, when he came out, was hated on. Josh Allen was hated on back in August before he became great because they gave him some help, Brandon Beane did, who, by the way, drafted Josh Allen. When Josh Allen came out and was getting hated on, Sam Darnold, his good friend, defended him, said, you can't, he's never going to be a bust. He's going to prove all you guys wrong. Now Josh Allen has to defend Sam Darnold was being hated on. And then the 2 quarterback thing in Carolina. Why not 2 quarterbacks with the Jets? You want Fields, you want Darnold, but you don't want Darnold and Wilson. If you had Darnold and Wilson, okay, then you have the win-win. If you go with Darnold only, you get Kyle Pitts or one of those 3 receivers. Now Carolina has Darnold, and they can get Penei Sewell the tackle, or maybe one of those receivers that drop. So for me, look past the numbers. Look at Sam Darnold in the end of the 2018, end of 2019, end of 2020. He showed he'd be good with very little around him. So maybe he didn't show greatness, Mike, but he showed he'd be good at various stages of the last 3 years. He's only 23. Great move for Carolina. Applaud it. And I would not take a quarterback there. I would get Penei Sewell, the tackle, to be his left tackle, or I would get one of those receivers to go along with Moore and Anderson. You bring Darnold in, bring Arnold in to go with Darnold. Now you got weapons around the quarterback, or you get the left tackle, the bookend. I think Sam Darnold is vastly underrated, and I don't get the criticism because people just haven't seen it yet. They're going to see it like they saw it with Ryan Tannehill once he escaped and got to Tennessee for a 4th-round pick, and Jim Plunkett left New England to escape out of there. So this has happened before. It's going to happen again with Sam Darnold.
Absolutely outstanding. To be very clear, the Arnold he's talking about is Dan Arnold, the tight end. So they could have a touchdown pass this year from Darnold to Arnold, which would, if nothing else, be fun to call in the highlights. Mel, that is outstanding. Booger, let me come to you on the basic point of it, because there was I see both sides of it as far as if you're the Jets and you're going to take Zach Wilson at number 2. I see keeping Darnold there and letting that situation play out. I also see the potential downfalls of something like that. I see it both ways. Booger, how do you see it?
Well, Greeny, I'm from the old school. Listen, this is called pro football. This is not high school, college. This is big boy. We get checks. We have tax returns, et cetera, et cetera. So I have no problem with having 2 quarterbacks and letting them compete and battle it out. I think the best man is going to win. You're going to create a competitive environment. That's what we're always taught as football players. So this whole notion of, well, if you have 2 quarterbacks in the room, the mentality of the quarterback, you're going to damage it. Come on, man, that's BS. Listen, be an adult, be a grown man, compete, and the best man is going to play for the job. If I were Joe Douglas and I were the Jets, again, I am on record, I would have kept Sam Darnold. Mel and I are sharing a brain. I still think Sam Darnold, from a talent standpoint, gives you everything that Zach Wilson does, plus he gives you the experience, and he's only 23 years old, Greeny. Understand that he is a guy you can build around, and I think Carolina is going to get the best out of him. And you, Greeny, are you going to sit back and one day you're going to name your kid again Sam Darnold, but he's going to be playing in Carolina and winning Super Bowls down in Charlotte.
Yeah, I have to go to the DMV and take care of that a little later today. Schefter, I'll give you the final word on this. Any part of it you want to take? Go.
Well, what I would say is, look, the Jets have racked up a lot of draft picks, Greeny. At some point, they're going to have to make these picks count, and there's no more important pick that this franchise has made than the one it's about to make with Zach Wilson. And the home run potential on Zach Wilson is vast. And I think they're going to pick him, and they better use those other picks to start building up that offensive line, which is something I know is near and dear to Joe Douglas's heart. And so if they can turn Zach Wilson into the quarterback that they think, you could finally, after years, be happy, Greeny.
We will see. I will tell you this. Well, the one thing going from 2011 through 2018, the one thing every New York Jets first-round pick has in common is that none of them are currently on their roster. So the picks is another conversation we can have. Meanwhile, let's get to an outstanding quarterback, and that's Aaron Rodgers. Did you see him last night? Green Bay star Aaron Rodgers made his debut as the host of Jeopardy last night. There's no question the best moment came during Final Jeopardy when one of the contestants used the opportunity to have a little fun. Watch this.
Over to our 2-day champion on the end. Scott, did you come up with the correct response? Who wanted to kick that field goal? That is a great question. Should should be correct, but unfortunately for this game today, that's incorrect, and you're going to lose 0. Thank you for that.
Now that was a delightful moment. For the record, the correct answer was Mr. Rodgers, not the Mr. Rodgers who was hosting the show, but the legendary Fred Rodgers was the answer to the question. Shefty, let's just get a quick laugh on that because I want to play the McAfee stuff first. What everybody take from that? Shefty, what'd you think of his debut on Jeopardy?
But I think he's natural, and if he wanted to do that full time, I think he'd be a great selection. And if he wanted to do it full time, I think he'd be very happy doing that over playing quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. But that's another story.
That's another story for another day. Okay, let me set up the other piece of this, because really the interesting stuff that he said yesterday was when he made his regular appearance on Pat McAfee's radio show, and this is what he said there.
I think that we're exactly where we were last year when I made comments after the draft and throughout the season. I don't feel like any of that's changed. All I can do is play my best, and I feel like last year I did do that, and may have thrown a wrench into some timelines that may have been thought about or desired. But ultimately, things haven't really changed on that front. My future is really, a lot of it's out of my control. That's why I mentioned, using words like a phrase like beautiful mystery, because it is quite uncertain which directions that things are going to go.
Holy smoke, he gets unbelievable stuff out of Rodgers every week on that show. He said this might have thrown a monkey wrench into other people's timelines. He said the future is out of my control. Shefty, that's Aaron Rodgers saying those things. What do you take away from it?
Well, again, as he said, it's exactly what he said last year and at the end of the season. And you remember there was a big conversation about his future. And clearly, he does not seem committed to that place. And he has questions about their commitment to him even more important. So the question is, what happens here, right? And again, he says it's not up to him. But I actually believe it is up to him. Because if he was uncomfortable enough, he could just go there and say, look, I'm going to force your hand. I'm not coming back there. I want to move on. You guys not only drafted a quarterback, but you traded up to draft a quarterback. And because you did that, I want to go somewhere else. And we've seen it play out in other places at other times for different reasons. We saw Peyton Manning leave Indy, not what he wanted to do, but did leave. We saw Tom Brady did leave New England, his choice. And I think if Aaron Rodgers drank truth serum and had his choice, he would move on to another place that hadn't traded up to get a quarterback in the first round.
And that may happen as soon as a year from now. And Booger, you've been around Peyton Manning and other great quarterbacks. You know how prideful they can be. How do you see this thing playing out? Booger.
Well, Greeny, to Shefty's point, Aaron Rodgers, I think, is torn because the organization clearly doesn't want him. They drafted Jordan Love. They clearly want to move on. And you heard his words. Hey, his play may have thrown a monkey wrench in it because we all sat up here a year ago and talked about this was the year they could get out from under their contract. Well, guess what? There's no way possible you're moving on from the reigning MVP. And if you're Aaron Rodgers, you're committed to your teammates. So to Shefty's point, yes, he could go in and demand a trade, but that's from a business standpoint. From a locker room, from a cohesion standpoint, he wants to go out there and win with Devontae Adams. He wants to win with Tunyon. He wants to win with David Bakhtiari and those guys because that's a close-knit unit. Those are his brothers. And so to his point, the business side, yes, he would clearly walk in there today and move on from Green Bay. But once you get on the field, it's clear that Aaron Rodgers is happy in Green Bay. He enjoys playing in Green Bay. He wants to go out there and play with his teammates. Greeny, and to me, there's something in the back of my head that's saying, you know what? He probably feels as if, how about I go out here and be in the MVP conversation again? And now what is Green Bay going to do? So he controls all the cards and he can dictate to them what they do. And right now, they're wasting a first-round pick sitting on the bench while Aaron Rodgers is having a continued Hall of Fame type career.
Go ahead, Mel.
I think it was a good move drafting Jordan Love. I disagree with the guys. I think Aaron Rodgers, he did the same thing to Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers slid. The Packers said, okay, we're not going to get a quarterback like this. We're not going to pick in the top 5. This guy slid all the way into the 20s. We take Aaron Rodgers when we have Brett Favre. They drafted Brian Brom in the second round after they already had Rodgers. They're trying to find the quarterback. It ended up being Aaron. Now you have Jordan Love. They got him at 26. He could have gone in the top 15. Nobody would have had an argument with that. So Jordan Love now is going to do to Aaron what Aaron did to Brett Favre. At some point, force him to move on. So I have no problem. The Packers at 26, Packers know they're not going to be picking in the top 5 or 10. And they got Jordan Love just like it got Aaron at a point in the draft where they felt like they were stealing a really bright young quarterback prospect.
After this season, Aaron Rodgers will have played more seasons in a Packers uniform than any player in history, and maybe it will be his last. We will take a short break. We have